I'm Ronnie Kaufman, the current Director of International Programs, and my job tonight is to MC, and then I've got a small presentation to make as well. But first, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge some people, starting with the international professors. I don't know how many we've got here, but would you all stand up? You may already be standing, but hold your arm up, and let's do it. Thank you for coming. Good turnout. And then it's not on the script that Linda gave me here, but I want to acknowledge the staff of International Programs who are have all worked hard to make this thing happen, starting with Sarah Evanja and Linda McCandless, and just the whole group of them have done a wonderful job, including press releases and the works. So, when I used to work over at Roberts Hall, I was evaluated once under this guy, and some of the department chairs wrote and said, Ronnie doesn't do much, but he knows how to hire good people. So I'm still doing that, and they're a great bunch. Lots of I really appreciate everyone being here. The provost is here, former deans, current deans. It's a real honor. Thank you all for coming. And the other people I want to recognize are the other international program people who are here. I see Ralph Christie back there from CFOD, and Inaldi Center people are here. Welcome. That was a wonderful event you all had, the Bartels lecture. I learned a lot. I was really struck by I was struck by his comment about how to present something. This fellow went and asked his priest if it was all right if he smoked while he was praying, and the priest said no. But then he met another priest who said, you asked the question in the wrong way. So he took his counsel and went back in and said, is it all right if I pray while I'm smoking? I thought, I could apply that to asking the dean for money. Is it all right if I work while I'm spending, or something like that? I don't know. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I was struck by another statement he made. He said, Cornell brought peace to Southeast Asia. And if you really think about it, the influence of Cornell, all of our programs, of course, this college was there for 20 years in Los Banos, but the rest of you from the area studies programs, particularly the Southeast Asia program, were there in many ways. And it's obvious, from his talk and what we've heard from many others. Anybody who goes to Asia these days, the dean's just been there, you're treated like a hero, right? And it's all due to the years and years of presence that we've all had there. So thank you all for coming, and many of you in this room share common values and a common mission, and so tonight we're here to celebrate a common purpose. Before we go further, there's one person I particularly want to recognize, and that is Peggy Hill. Where is Peggy? Stand up there, Peggy. Many of you know who Peggy is. She's, of course, the daughter of Dr. Forrest Hill, Frosty Hill, who was the co-founder of the CGIAR, who was a provost here early on. And Peggy's mother, Lillian Hollingshead, was quite a prominent wheat geneticist, which is a current interest of ours, and Peggy has established a fund in honor of her mother that supports students in experiential learning in various parts of the world. So Peggy, you're our only donor present tonight, so a double thanks to you. Thank you very much. So here's what we have in store for the rest of the evening. Larry Zeidema, the former Associate Director of CALS, is going to give us the historical perspective. After that, I'll tell you a little about the current state of IP CALS, and then Sarah Vanja, our new Senior Associate Director, will talk about challenges, opportunities, imperatives in a changing world as we move forward, and she'll also give you the schedule of events for the rest of the year. We have quite a lineup for you. And then last but not least, by any means, we'll hear from from Dean Catherine Boer about the importance of IP CALS in future internationalization strategies for the college. So our first speaker, Larry Zeidema, is an agricultural economist, began his career with IP CALS on the 1st of February, 1964, exactly 1 year after it was established. He interrupted his service to Cornell between October 1970 and July 73 when he went to Hawaii and served as a program officer. Otherwise, he's been here. He retired from Cornell in 1995, so he knows better than most of us how things got underway. And he keeps up with international activities through his wife, Heike Mickelson, who serves as Director of Programming in the Annuity Center. Most of you know her. So please welcome Larry.
I can't tell you how pleased I am to be here and to see so many friends and colleagues from the past. It's been 18 years since I was working at Cornell, but you all look just about the same, and it's just been great seeing you all again. Yeah. So, well, today we celebrate with meteorites and asteroids and so forth. That's a bit over the top, Ronnie. The 50th anniversary of the international programs of New York State College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. At the same time, we also celebrate several enduring features of the program, components of the program, as follows. So, I just wanted to highlight this because it does say something about how solid this program has been. 50 years of an organized graduate school program in international agriculture and rural development, which began with an interdepartmental IAD minor. 50 years of an undergraduate program in international agriculture, which began with a secondary specialization and is now as a major subject area. 45 years of IA 602, a popular interdisciplinary course, which continues to put students and faculty directly in touch with development institutions, communities, and issues abroad. 40 years of the MPS degree program in international agriculture and rural development. 39 years of scientific exchanges with the countries of Eastern Europe through several different types of activities. And 34 years of the Hubert Humphrey program bringing mid-career professionals into the Cornell academic environment. Along the way, many projects, interesting projects and activities come and gone, providing significant international experiences and enriched academic environment for students. And the faculty and staff, of course, as well. These activities broadened the faculty base capable of teaching and doing research of relevance in the developing world. But they also helped produce the manpower and leadership needed to address their international or their agricultural problems, and open up new opportunities for development. Cornell's pioneering effort in establishing a formal international agriculture program in the College of Agriculture in February 1963 paved the way for many other U.S. universities to do the same. And today, the program is nationally recognized, particularly for its academic program. I would like now, this evening, to just highlight three broad questions that help us understand how the foundation of IP CALS will allow it to continue to be an enduring and viable program in the future. So, what was the genesis of CALS? The roots, if you will. How was CALS actually established? And what characterized the new international program of CALS? Therefore, I will not be standing here all night telling you about all the things that we did in international agriculture, because it would take all night to do that. The genesis of the program, in establishing what has been called the first international agriculture program in the U.S. at a U.S. university, was a bold and brave move. But what prepared Cornell for this decision? For starters, it certainly helps to build such a program at an already world-class university. The philosophy of Ezra Cornell, expressed in the Cornell motto, as well as our commitment to service as part of the land-grant system, were important elements in preparing CALS for an international dimension. In reviewing the genesis of IP CALS, 5 topics will be explored: mutual benefits, scientific exchanges, professional development, technical assistance, and institution building. Mutual benefits, international engagement by CALS on campus and abroad was justified and seen as mutually beneficial in the past as it is today. In the early days, the idea of mutual benefits usually referred to European-focused activities. But this changed with increased faculty experience in other parts of the world. Liberty Hyde Bailey highlighted this change over 100 years ago in his foreword to the 1911 book, which most of you know about, called Farmers of 40 Centuries. It was written by F.H. King of the University of Wisconsin. And in the foreword to that book, he says, "We have only begun to farm well. The first condition of farming is to maintain fertility. This condition the Oriental peoples have met, and they have solved it in their way: night soil. We may never adopt particular methods, but we can profit vastly by their experience." What this did is to suggest, Bailey was suggesting that some level of scientific humility, but an early appreciation by Cornell leaders for the mutual benefits involved with international engagement with the peoples and institutions of the developing world as well. Scientific exchanges. Many of you know who this is, Albert Russell Mann. In 1924, CALS provided national leadership for international exchanges in agricultural science and education with the 2-year assignment to Europe of CALS Dean Albert Mann by the International Education Board to undertake European, this is quote, to undertake European organization for the agricultural exchanges in cooperation with American institutions. This board, established in 1923 by John D. Rockefeller, Jr., eventually provided support for U.S. scientific exchanges in agriculture with 39 countries worldwide. It existed from 1923 to 38, but was absorbed into the Rockefeller Foundation in 1929. Dean Mann became Cornell Provost and died just before the dedication of Mann Library. Professional development. Does anyone in this room know this man? Not even a handful. If I say he was a colorful professor at Cornell University, would you agree? Earl Augustus Caesar Bates. Professional development of international students was an important part of CAL's early history, and many professors were committed to this activity. One of CAL's most colorful faculty members was Earl Augustus Caesar Bates, professor of physical anthropology in the college and founder of the American Indian Farmers School in New York State. He was a native of Syracuse, had all his degrees in medicine, served in the Congo for the British and in Java for the Dutch when he was about 20 years old. Following a 14 stint with the Rockefeller Foundation, he joined Cornell for 40 years, focusing on the needs of Indian communities in New York State. You can look later at this picture because we have it there as a poster. In 1921, the International Agricultural Society was formed by American and international students, and Bates was described as its guiding spirit and founding father. The photo shows the first annual banquet of IADS in 1922, which was addressed by Professor Liberty Hyde Bailey, Dean Albert Mann, Professor Dwight Sanders of Rural Sociology, and students from China, India, Philippines, and Thailand. So it's clear that CALS was actively training many international leaders for development in the early days, and that both administrators and faculty were intimately involved with this. You can't read this, but in 1923, Daily Sun had an article that shows the students and faculty were having a pretty good time with lots of music. And Bates produced a pageant, and it was given at this meeting on the spirit of international agriculture. I now propose, Ronnie, that this be one of the features of the year of celebration. One could say that IADS was reborn in 1979 as the International Association of Camel Breeders, which was organized by IP-CALS students with similar objectives. Shirts are there for you to look at if you'd like. I don't know if they still exist, but I know they existed for over 20 years. Technical assistance. The era of CALS technical assistance activities possibly began with the Cornell Nanjing Cooperative Crop Improvement Program, which took place at the University of Nanking in two interrupted phases between 1925 and 1931. The project was led by Professor Harry Love and involved two other faculty members. With the assistance of Dean Mann, this famine-induced plant breeding project was primarily funded by the above-mentioned International Education Board. According to CALS Dean W.I. Myers, the success of the Cornell Nanjing project was one of the basic reasons for the initiation of a more comprehensive program of cooperation between American colleges and their overseas counterparts. Cornelian J. Lossing Buck and several Cornell professors were also active in Nanjing, conducting farm surveys and establishing an agricultural economics department. The widely acclaimed success of these Cornell Nanjing project activities gave CALS the confidence to pursue similar activities years later, including the Philippines project. Institution building. These are just single examples that I'm giving. There are lots of others that one could use. Based on Truman's Point 4 program of technical assistance, the U.S. government funded in the early 50s the first of many long-term institution building projects which partners a U.S. university with a university abroad. In this context, and with the encouragement and assistance of Dean W.I. Myers, CALS developed a contractual relationship with the University of the Philippines College of Agriculture. The Cornell Philippines project focused on the rebuilding of the college and its undergraduate program in the period of 1952 to 1960. It provided advanced education opportunities in the U.S. for 68 Filipino staff, 35 of them at Cornell. And what it did for Cornell, for CALS, was to involve 35 professors in long-term assignments in the Philippines where they gained experience with and better understanding of agriculture abroad. And they brought this back to Cornell. It also stimulated CALS and the Ford Foundation to initiate a second Philippines program, which involved another 32 long-term and 26 short-term professors from 1963 to 1972. In summary, it's clear that a variety of prior Cornell international activities set the stage for the development of the program in international agriculture. It was time to organize a formal program. So part two is the establishment of IP-CALS, this period of 1960 to 1963. What did it take to establish IP-CALS? Among other factors, it took the unique combination of a dynamic foundation leader, an academic superstar, an enlightened administrator, an experienced visionary, and an energetic program leader. And of course, a lot of money. Institutional development is a major endeavor. The period from 1960 to 63 was nothing short of remarkable with respect to the series of activities that led to the establishment of IP-CALS. The several interlinked events that converged to make this possible are best viewed from the standpoint of some of the central figures that were involved. The story really unfolds in terms of their interactions. And this is what I would like to share with you tonight. Peggy. Frosty Hill was the head of the Department of Agricultural Economics from 1943 to 1952, provost of Cornell from 52 to 55, and vice president of the Ford Foundation from 55 to 67, where he had primary responsibilities for overseas programs. In October 1957, he presented a paper at Cornell entitled "The Human Factor in Economic Development." This was a graduate school convocation. At the conclusion of the talk, Hill said, "There is a need for specialization plus the more important kinds of political, social, economic, and technological changes that must take place in a country as it moves from a less to a more economically development stage." He goes on to say, "If I do not get at least one project proposal out of this talk, I shall be disappointed, deeply disappointed, in the resourcefulness and imagination of the Cornell faculty." Shortly after, in 1960, the Ford Foundation announced a new international training and research program for the support of non-Western studies. This program provided major financial support to a few universities, so Cornell University had been forewarned by its inside man. Well, John Howard of the Ford Foundation received Cornell's proposal for international studies, including international agricultural development, on October 23, 1961. And the foundation responded appropriately on March 23, 1962, with a $3.25 million grant to the Center for International Studies, which included 5 years of funding of $800,000 for international agricultural development, but primarily for 6 new international professor positions in the rural social sciences. In the negotiations, both Howard and Hill made it clear that a condition for funding the agricultural component of this CIS proposal was the establishment of IP-CALS and state funding. There was the leverage. The Ford Foundation continued to provide major support for IP-CALS until 1974, and it was Frosty who arranged for Ford to provide funding for the 10-year Philippines project beginning in 1963. Frosty was one of the key architects and supporters of the CG system and served as chairman of the board of ERIE. And he was the chairman of John W. Mellor's PhD committee. Cornell-educated, John Mellor became assistant professor of agricultural economics in Cornell in 1954, focusing his research on the role of agriculture in economic development and teaching several internationally oriented courses. John was one of the 10 members of a Cornell International Affairs Committee that was established in 1960 by the dean of the faculty, who was also the dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Arnold Hansen, and it was chaired by Lawson Sharp. In spring 1961, this committee recommended the creation of the Center for International Studies. After faculty and board of trustees approval, President Dean Malott established the center in July 1961. With Mario Naudi of government as the director, John Mellor and Stephen Muller, who recently passed away, as associate directors, and Richard Bradfield as a member of the first executive committee. I think many of us did not realize the reach that Dick Bradfield had in those early years. The prospect of Ford Foundation support and the planned establishment of the center as an umbrella for international activities were certainly added stimuli for CALS to get its act together to form IP-CALS. So in April 1961, newly appointed Dean Charles Palm, he'd been there for a year or so, arranged for John Mellor to serve for several months as his personal advisor on what the college should do in the area of international agricultural development, and during that period, he was also a key member of the Bradfield Committee, which eventually made recommendations to the dean. Working with Dean Palm, John Mellor authored the international agricultural development of the CIS proposal that went to Ford. On the subject of administration, John then underlined the need for a program director, administrative staff, and advisor, of which I was one, and an advisory board for the International Agriculture Development Program, and indicated to Ford that a request was being made to New York State to fund this. John later became the director of IFPRI and is still active with his own consulting firm, John Miller Associates Incorporated. Appointed as dean in July of 1959, when the first Philippine project was coming to a close, Charlie Palm quickly realized that the time was right to focus on the international dimension of CALS. Land-Grant Association papers in 1960 and 61 on the international dimension of the U.S. universities likely influenced this decision. He later said that the question was then, how should we organize to provide our faculty with opportunities to participate and learn about the major problems of agriculture in the developing world, and at the same time permit them to provide leadership working with friends in other lands. To get an answer, he asked CALS departments in the fall of 1960, this is where it started, to form internal committees to study the problems of training students for international agriculture development and to report back to him. These reports pointed to the need for more intensive study. So on May 1, 1961, he appointed a 14-person committee mainly composed of department heads, and a lot of those people were also those that served in the Philippines. And with Richard Bradfield as chairman, Ken Turk, Niall Brady, Keith Kennedy, and John Mellor among the 14. In Palm's own words, we asked the Bradfield Committee to advise the administration and faculty as to whether we should develop a program of identifiable dimension as college responsibility, or whether we should leave it to the individual faculty member, if interested, to work on his own terms of participation, probably as a member of someone else's team. That was the crux of it. That was the question that had to be answered at that time. In his charge to the committee, Charlie notes that both Bradfield and Mellor, by virtue of being on the University International Affairs Committee, which recommended CIS, are in an excellent position to see how our activities, this is a quote, might fit into the greater Cornell picture. So we were not developed very separately. There was a lot of interaction. A distinguished agronomist, Richard Bradfield had considerable international experience and served as a consultant in agricultural sciences to the Rockefeller Foundation from 1941 to 1955, starting in Mexico. Like Mellor, he was a member of this Cornell International Affairs Committee, had the respect of the dean and the faculty, and was therefore a natural choice for the chairman of the dean's new committee entitled The Role of the College of Agriculture in International Agriculture Development. 4 major subcommittee reports were organized into a final Bradfield report that was presented to the dean in June of 1961. And the recommendations are as follows. Appointment of a program director to be responsible for any administrative aspect for international agriculture development programs, and an advisory committee. That the college provide a comprehensive quality graduate program for training American and foreign students for service in international agriculture development. That cooperative contract arrangements be developed with 1 or 2 foreign universities for the purpose of developing these institutions into regional centers, not just direct institution buildings, but wider than that. That the college takes special interest in the Philippines College of Agriculture at Los Baños and explore further collaboration. Dick Bradfield was a member of the Board of Trustees of the Rockefeller Foundation from 1956 to 1961 and played an important role in the establishment of both CIMMYT and ERIE. He retired from Cornell in 1962, several months before the birth of CALS, and it appears that he was the father. Ken Turk was the head of animal science from 1945 to 1963, spending a year with the Cornell Project in the Philippines. In 1954, to 1955. He was appointed to the Bradfield Committee in May of 1961, and thus became involved with both departmental and college issues related to the structuring of international agriculture of Cornell. His past experience and management reputation made him an excellent choice for the director of the newly proposed International Agriculture Development Program. After approval and financial support was obtained from Governor Nelson Rockefeller and the legislature of New York, Ken was officially appointed director in February 1963 and moved, in February, but then he stayed as the head of the Department of Animal Science, so he was half-time director until June 30. And then in September, he moved into 102 Roberts Hall, right next to the dean's office, which is where I first met him. The earlier mutual decision to launch a second Philippines project had given added impetus to the establishment of the ID program, since this activity would need a management home. So in his first few months as director, Cornell took full responsibility for finalizing this project, which was seeking funding at the time. And then by July of 1963, both Ford and Rockefeller Foundations assured the funding would be available. By mid-1963, Ken had already established both the undergraduate and graduate programs in international agriculture. He remained director of the program until his compulsory retirement on June 30, 1974. At this point, I'd just like to pay a tribute to Ken Turk. He helped lay the foundation of IP-CALS and contributed significantly to its viability, growth, accomplishments, and enduring quality. He paid close attention to the recommendations of the Bradfield Committee and quickly molded those recommendations into a coherent program. His total dedication, energetic leadership, bold initiatives, and insistence on quality were equally applied to the newly established UPCO program in the Philippines as they were to the establishment of a first-class on-campus education program. On a personal note, shortly after I joined the program, one of his colleagues in animal science said to me, "Ken Turk runs a tight ship." And indeed he did. And he'd be very proud that I told you so. In fact, he might have even said, "Damn right I did." One of the things I learned from Ken Turk was the meaning of the acronym PDQ. And I learned that, PDQ. I'd just like to finish by saying something about some of the program characteristics. As I said, I'm not going to be looking at the full history of the program. That would take a long time. So let's explore some of these characteristics and activities that define CAL from the beginning and remained relevant over time. Time limitations forced me to focus only on these: clear objectives, integrated structure, on-campus education program, international professors, thesis research abroad, and diversified funding. The four major objectives of CALS guided it throughout the 50 years of the program to some extent, although they changed over time. Develop a comprehensive program for education and training American and foreign graduate, undergraduate, and graduate students to work in international agricultural development. This was almost the same as what was said by the Bradfield Committee, and also is similar to our current objectives of IP-CALS. Develop a program of basic and applied research in biological, natural, and social sciences applicable to agriculture in low-income countries, very similar to a current objective. Develop a program of direct cooperation with universities and other countries to assist in the development of their staffs and facilities. This was similar to a Bradfield Committee recommendation, and it legitimized the Philippine project that came along shortly after. Develop an exchange of graduate students and professional staff between Cornell and cooperating universities. But in practical terms, we spent most of our time coordinating the academic program, seeking funds for international professors and other professors at Cornell University, and for managing and coordinating a whole range of international projects over the years. As early as 1962, Charlie Palm referred to the emerging IP-CALS program as the fourth dimension of the college, meaning that it would be integrated into the college along with research, education, and extension. This fourth dimension designation gave the program high visibility and status and sent a message to all that CALS was fully committed to this activity. In practical terms, it meant that the director of CALS was on an administrative par with the directors of research, education, and extension, and attended the dean and director's team meetings each week as an officer of the college. The distinction among these directors was that IP-CALS was a New York State and college created activity, whereas the other units were established by the U.S. Congress with mandated financial support. On-campus education program. Ken Turk, I heard him say it a million times. The CALS International program is right here on campus. And what we do abroad is meant to feed into this program in the form of international experience for faculty and training and research opportunities for students. Nationally, this distinguished us from a lot of other universities who, when asked to describe their program, would give you a list of their overseas activities. The student-oriented IP-CALS program manifests itself in the establishment in 1963 of the graduate field of International Agriculture Development, initially offering a minor, while a secondary specialization on the same topic was developed for undergraduates. The MPS program came along in 1973. The number of international courses listed for the program increased from 15 in 1964 to about 40 in 1974 to 60 in 1984, and probably is at that level today. In 1984, there were 1,500 students enrolled in those courses. It's interesting to note that Cornell University's current expressed desire to increase the international exposure of students was already a reality in CALS, beginning 45 years ago with the establishment of the field-oriented IA 602 course. One of the most distinguishing features of IP-CALS was the early designation of international professors in CALS. This started with Ford support for the 6 new faculty positions in rural social sciences, and with a second Ford grant in 1966 linked to the Latin American year, 4 new faculty positions were added in the agricultural sciences. So 10 new faculty positions in 7 departments. A dean's dream. I'm sure. The Ford Foundation not only covered faculty salaries, but provided a package of support, including student assistantships, travel and staff salaries. In the 5-year, $1.2 million grant award for continued support in 1968, the Ford Foundation added a condition that these international positions eventually be supported by New York State. And by 1972, 9 of them were. Here with us today is David Thurston, one of the original international agricultural professors. Graduate student research abroad. Encouragement and support for both U.S. and international students to conduct their thesis research in the developing world was one of the early hallmarks of the IP-CALS program. The idea was to focus U.S. students on development issues and to allow international students the opportunity to do research on problems of their own country. For over 25 years, the number of CALS graduates conducting research abroad in any one year increased and ranged from 38 to 102. Some examples are as follows. The UPCO project provided the opportunity for 23 U.S. and 11 Filipino students to conduct their MS and PhD research in the Philippines. The second long-term Ford Foundation support for the 10 international professors included funds for thesis research abroad. Third, the final Ford grant to the program in 1974 was specifically for thesis research abroad and allowed 28 PhD candidates to go abroad. And fourth, the Rockefeller Foundation funded a most unique and successful interdisciplinary project which supported 6 PhD candidates from 6 disciplines to conduct studies on maize in Mexico. And there's a story there. And finally, diversified funding. By design or accumulated decision-making, the Ford Foundation achieved an amazing level of synergy in its funding of the Cornell international activities between 1962 and 1974. Think about it. The foundation provided major financial support for the early years of both the Center for International Studies and IP-CALS, for the continuation of the Southeast Asia program and the China program, 2 areas where CALS was very strong, and for a major 10-year institution building project involving CALS and the University of the Philippines College of Agriculture. The synergy included support for the International Rice Research Institute in 1960, also at Los Baños, with its first director being Robert Chandler, a Cornellian. Funding from New York State was also important, with its line item support of the director and the line item support for the 9 international professors. We did have a lot of national funding. I'll skip that section, but there were a number of items that were a number of ways in which we got funding from federal government. They're listed up there. And I just want to highlight that the university community was able to get a presidentially appointed committee called BIFAD, and which is still in operation today, in order to get more funding. Between 1974 and 1995, IP-CALS, that's when I left, diversified its funding base and eventually became involved in over 50 international sponsored activities on behalf of CALS, both on campus and abroad. About 20 of these were AID funded. Noteworthy was the U.S. Department of Education Title VI funding for the Center for the Analysis of World Food Issues, which among other things supported the academic program for over 9 years. Many of these sponsored project activities provided substantial support not only for the intended activities per se, but also for Cornell and CALS in terms of indirect costs, for CALS departments in terms of faculty salary recovery, for the many graduate students who received assistantships and funds for research abroad, and for CALS faculty whose travels gave them considerable international experience to share with their students. In addition, Dave Call generously returned a share of the earned indirect costs to the program. But as time went by, tight funding reduced the ability of IP-CALS to directly support the international professors, and that was a serious issue. But then, to relief of Dave Call and lots of others, the generosity of Mr. Charles Feeney came along, permitting the establishment of CFAD, which provided a major infusion of funding that allowed many CALS and other faculty and graduate students flexible opportunities for international engagement. I cannot address these topics, but just to tell you, there's lots to talk about. Concluding remarks. Over the years, IP-CALS was involved in an incredible array of international activities. I've been talking to people in the room, and we were just recounting many of them. But what did it all mean? What did IP-CALS really accomplish? Focusing on what IP-CALS did for Cornell University and CALS, the following things come to mind. Access to funding for international research and education that would have been more difficult without an organized program. Access to national and international research centers for cooperative research focused on agriculture and rural development abroad. Recognition that CALS is the place to study to prepare for international careers and leadership positions in agricultural development. Opportunities for meaningful and rewarding international research and education experiences, the capacity within CALS for managing complex international projects here and abroad, and a solid foundation and framework for future international engagement by CALS. But what about the achievements of IP-CALS for the developing world? Assessing outcomes and impacts of CALS activities here and abroad is much more complicated. So as we mark the 50th anniversary year of IP-CALS, this may be the right time for a thorough study of CALS' international accomplishments, building on the recent efforts of Roy Coley, who's here with us today, and involving him and already interested faculty. After many years of international activities, the foundation of IP-CALS was laid 50 years ago. This foundation provided the guiding framework that was refined over the years to accommodate to new opportunities, resources, and circumstances. All of this signifies the prospect of continued excellence in focusing our faculty and students on the development needs of the world around us. In conclusion, I would like to pay tribute to the IP-CALS team, current and past, for their dedication and significant contributions over the years. Former IP-CALS Director Walt Coward recently said to me, "The International Agriculture Program has been an essential part of Cornell's worldwide contributions, and I'm proud to have been a part of it." I totally share those sentiments. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, for a great job. As Larry mentioned, we are going to have a group of faculty. Several people have expressed an interest in contributing to a book. I expect it'll be about the history. So anyone who's interested should stay in touch and let me know. So Larry's brought you to the present. And Larry, did you make off with the clicker, or did you? Could be. Not by design. Larry's brought you to the present, and I'm going to be, which shows you that IP-CALS has been delivering teaching, research, and outreach programs to address the challenges of food security and sustainable development. And since 1963, IP-CALS has been at the forefront of what President Scorton called internationalizing the student experience, developing future generations of leaders and doers. These leaders are the people who will address rural development issues. So I want to take a few moments to talk about the present and each of our flagship programs. Larry talked about leaders. Leaders are one leg of the IP-CALS three-leg stool. Leaders rely on new knowledge and technologies, which form the second leg of the stool. And the leg I want to concentrate on is partners, which I think are really important in today's world. IP-CALS has partners on campus and off campus. We form partnerships with students, faculty, researchers, scientists, farmers, administrators, government agencies, NGOs, development institutions, communities, and public and private funding agencies. Our ability to build effective partnerships is one of IP-CALS's critical strengths. It's been that from the beginning and couldn't be any more important than today going forward. And of course, as Larry illustrated, our very genesis was founded on partnerships with the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, and I won't repeat what Larry's already told you. So first, I want to, I've got it pointed at the computer, don't I? Is it the top one or the right? There we go. And here we go. Internationalizing the student experience and our academic programs. These are IP-CALS's strengths. Building effective partnerships is a leadership skill that can be taught and practiced at any level, from the undergraduate to the graduate student to the mid-career professional. For many years, for 50 years, IP-CALS has offered undergraduate and graduate training in international agricultural development. CALS offers degree programs that build on the IARD major and minor. Numerous students from other colleges, particularly the engineering school at Cornell, minor in international development in CALS. So just to show you, and this thing's a little tricky, here we go. This is what's happened to our number of students, and you can see it's on quite an upward trend. There's really a very serious interest in this major. The number of new undergraduate students per year is growing. Our fine cadre of more than 70 international professors who are busy with research and outreach teach, advise, and lead students on experiential learning trips, offer networking opportunities, and help arrange internships for students. Graduate students can now get an advanced degree in what we call global development. earning a master's degree that prepares them for leadership positions in universities, international institutes, NGOs, and government centers around the world. Peace Corps volunteers can also get an advanced degree here. Steve Kyle and Peter Hobbs lead our undergraduate and graduate academic programs. One note of interest that probably dates me significantly was that I was a graduate student in plant breeding at Cornell in 1969, and I took IARD 602 the second year it operated. And David Thurston, is David, where, there he is. He was guiding that course to Puerto Rico, which was a real experience for Kentucky. I hadn't seen the ocean yet, so I'd seen the Ohio River in Kentucky, but that was it. So it was quite an experience for me. And that course, we've kept it alive. I remember when I came back from the Philippines, Dave Call said, "Kaufman, you're taking over." And you know, an order was an order. So I ran it for several years. So then let me talk a minute about internationalization of mid-career professionals. For 34 years, the Hubert H. Humphrey Fellowship Program, and I should have a slide here that highlights it, has been bringing mid-career professionals into the Cornell academic environment. Do we have any Humphrey Fellows here? Yeah, plenty of them. Welcome. Glad you're here. The mission of the program is to establish long-lasting partnerships and develop leaders whose knowledge and skills are augmented by exposure to American experience, values, and models. These engaging leaders come from all over the world to take classes, learn new technologies, participate in field visits, and then take the knowledge back to their home country. Francine Jasper and Peter Gregory look after this program. Then we have the Borlaug Fellows, promote food security and economic development by increasing scientific knowledge and collaborative research for mid-career fellows who work closely with faculty mentors. Working closely with K.V. Raman, one success story is that of a Borlaug graduate is Dr. Alok Jha, who went back to Banaras Hindu University in India and established a new food science program there. And Francine Jasper looks after this program as well. For 37 years, we've had a contract with the Peace Corp. Peace Corps to give graduating students experience abroad, and more recently to give them opportunity to receive an advanced degree based on that experience. We also recruit volunteers from our undergraduate population. Cornell currently has 40 alumni serving overseas and ranks 4th in producing Peace Corps volunteers among medium-sized colleges and universities nationwide. For many years, Jim Haldeman led that effort, and this year he's retiring. Jim, where are you? There he is. Stand up. Jim's been a tireless advocate for the Peace Corps, tireless in working with students to gain that critical international experience, and tireless on behalf of IP CALS in general. So Jim, thank you for everything you've done, and we'll be doing more to honor Jim later this year. Marshall McCormick is the excellent and current campus coordinator heading up the Peace Corps initiative. Marshall, are you around here somewhere? Don't see him. Probably recruiting somebody, huh? Another partnering initiative we have is Transnational Learning, and a program that's ever-evolving nexus of information technology, agriculture development, and education and research. As e-learning expands and broadband and Wi-Fi access improves globally, e-learning is a potential international growth sector for Cornell and IP CALS in terms of delivering classes and field experience to students around the globe. Stefan Arneson, who directs that group, tells me that if he had to send a memo to higher education, it would be remote learning is going to rock your world. I think a lot of people sense that it's really, you know, MOOCs are something that just kind of send a chill up, depending on where you're coming from. They may send a chill up some people's backbone and you know, really enthuse others. But anyway, serious change is coming. And then one of our biggest strengths lies in our funded research portfolio, which you can see we've been growing fairly steadily. It's valued at a little over $150 million now. And I'm going to just quickly run through the major projects with our partners, sort of a chronological Cook's tour, as Linda put here. Each project has something critical to do with food. So the first one is ABSP2, the Agricultural Biotechnology Support Project, we call it, and we're hoping for an ABSP3. We've had something over $30 million come in through this project, and we're about to enter a third phase, we hope, for at least another $5 million in core money, and then we have associate awards from different countries that participates. This takes place with country partners such as the Philippines, Indonesia, India, Bangladesh, and parts of Africa. This was our first big award. Peter Gregory, who's not here tonight, originated the proposal. The goal is to deliver the right bioengineered products to resource-poor farmers who've run out of options. We're working with fruit and shoot borer resistant eggplant, late blight resistant potato, disease nematode resistant East African highland bananas, papaya ring spot virus resistant papaya, drought and salt tolerant rice, and MVR tomato. Frank Shakosky is the director of the project, and KB Raman is the associate director, and our partners in India, Satguru, are very key on the ground in Asia. The next one is our durable rust resistance in wheat project. This is a total of $66 million so far. Our biggest project in terms of funding and number of partners, supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It was first funded in 2008, and it takes a global approach to fighting the deadly disease of wheat, particularly wheat rust. It was initiated by the late Norman Borlaug, who was one of my mentors, who was a guiding force for us all. We have over 22 partners around the world in this global project, and we're really proud of it as a good example of how we can mobilize a global research initiative. The Agricultural Innovation Partnership, or AIP, is funded by USAID. It's started as $10 million. They rescinded part of it. You know, when you're working with USAID, you have all kinds of fun. Under President Obama's Feed the Future initiative, the goal is to improve food availability, nutrition, and health in East India and Africa by providing opportunities for diversification of income and economic and social advancement of the rural poor and women in particular by modernizing agricultural science and extension curriculum. This is led by KB Raman, who's here tonight, and Satguru. Then we have the Obama Singh 21st Century Knowledge Initiative, strengthens collaboration and builds partnerships between American and Indian institutions of higher education focused on capacity building in food processing, plant breeding, and seed production. KB leads that one as well. Our latest project is the next generation cassava breeding project. The goal is to dramatically increase the rate of genetic improvement of cassava in sub-Saharan Africa, where cassava is a major staple crop. Again, partners are integral, from the Boyce Thompson Institute up the road here to the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture and the National Root Crops Research Institute in Nigeria, the National Crops Resources Research Institute in Uganda, and locally the technology of genomic selection and the work of Tim Setter and Jean-Luc Janik, who is here with the USDA, are a very key part of this project. And Holly Tufan is our project manager. This is a $25 million project supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The last program I want to mention is a new one called AWARE that Sarah's going to talk about. related to women in agriculture. Before closing, the last thing I want to mention is that we have several proposals in the oven totaling more than $70 million. So we're proud of our portfolio of projects, and I think, Sarah, it's time for me to introduce you as our new Senior Associate Director, and Sarah's going to talk to us about things to come.
Thanks for that introduction, Ronnie, and welcome everybody. I'm really proud to be here tonight with all of you to celebrate the launch of CALS' 50th anniversary. It's going to be an exciting year, so look forward, look ahead. These are extraordinary times. Globally, we face major fiscal constraints and unprecedented challenges in addressing issues related to development and global food security. On the local level, there's some uncertainty about what internationalization will mean for our own university and how we can generate knowledge with a public purpose to improve the lives of people facing hunger, poverty, and instability on a global scale. In this time of reassessment and change, I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to step into this CALS leadership role. 2013 will be an important year to reposition CALS to train even more undergraduate and graduate students, more mid-career professionals that will all lead us forward for the next 50 years. In just the past couple of months, we have some remarkable successes to celebrate. As Ronnie mentioned, we have a new sponsored program that's grown out of our office, a $25 million investment from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the UK Department for International Development. And this project is aimed to develop and apply the cutting-edge science of genomics that we have here at Cornell to accelerate gains in cassava, an important food security crop. Last month, one of CALS' signature programs, the Humphrey Fellows, grew their leadership program to include a new 5-part seminar series that engages the campus and the Ithaca community on the topic of adaptation and mitigation to climate change. In training undergraduates and graduate students for leadership positions, new awards have been established through our CALS initiatives, such as the Borlaug Global Rust Initiative Gene Stewardship Award, and the Women in Triticum Award. And we've just selected the recipients for 2013. For graduate students, the Frosty Hill Award has now been expanded to include opportunities for our most committed graduate students to be able to engage internationally through collaborations with our CGIAR partners. A new Peace Corp fellowship program is likely to be coming to Cornell to further strengthen our connections with, between Cornell and the Peace Corps, and we'll be hearing more about that in April. The CALS AWARE initiative, and that stands for Advancing Women in Agriculture Through Research and Education, is our office's new cross-cutting gender initiative, and it's now been formally established to ensure that CALS addresses gender equity in every aspect of what we do. And our very own finance guru, who keeps the CALS ship afloat, Tammy Thomas, was recently honored with the CALS Staff Core Values Award. So the public program that we're launching this evening that will celebrate CALS' 50th anniversary over the course of this year highlights many of the ways in which CALS has had a significant impact internationally. I hope you'll all pick up a copy of the program. I see there's a stack here, and of course you'll be seeing it digitally online. During this year, you'll see we plan to celebrate successful CALS partnerships, such as our partnership with the Peace Corps in April, our partnership with CGIAR centers in November, and our fellow land-grant international programs in December. We'll celebrate the impact that those collaborations have had and will continue to have on our staff, students, and faculty. In April, we'll be partnering with the Atkinson Center for a Sustainable Future to host Mark Linus on campus for a discussion on changing crops for a changing climate, and what biotechnologies like genetic engineering can contribute in the face of increasing challenges such as climate change. In September, we hear from World Food Prize laureates, Cornell World Food Prize laureates, as they consider current food policy with leading journalists who write about food security. We'll also hear from CALS faculty who will provide leadership in researching important global issues such as increasing soil productivity, sustainable approaches to disease resistance, food and resource distribution networks, implications of increased meat and dairy consumption on global food security, and food science approaches to decreasing waste and increasing an abundant food supply. In October, we've invited back some of CAL's most prominent alumni who work in international agriculture to come back and share their experiences with current students. Our very next event, March 8th, International Women's Day, we will have World Food Prize laureate and former director of the World Food Program, Catherine Bertini, come moderate a panel titled The Feminization of Agriculture, Truths and Consequences. We're pleased to have a highly interdisciplinary panel of Cornell scholars leading the discussion: Alexander Travis from the vet school, Pilar Parra from nutritional sciences, and Shelley Feldman from development sociology. The title of my remarks this evening includes the word imperative. There are a lot of imperatives in the world today, but I want to focus on one very important one: the girls in this photo who are fortunate to have gone to school on this day. Increasingly, across Africa, across Asia, all around the developing world, we see a trend where women and children are left in the village, left in the fields to produce food for the family and for market. The men are now often absent, victims of war, fallen to AIDS, or migrated afar to work in construction, mines, or oil fields. Women are increasingly bearing the burden of food production, often with a child on their back, limited access to resources, and lacking legal claim to their land. In light of this now prevalent phenomenon, the feminization of agriculture, we in IP-CALS, and all of us involved in global development initiatives, need to rethink the way we approach problems and ensure that we're serving the needs of these women burdened with the responsibility of getting their kids to school and attaining food-secure homes against all of the other challenges that they face, be they ecological, climatic, social, physical, or economic. It's for this reason that it was imperative for IP-CALS to initiate AWARE. We ask ourselves now, are the wheat varieties that we're developing through our Wheat Rust project meeting the needs of women farmers? What are the implications on women farmers of biotech vegetable crops that require fewer inputs? Will the increased gains in cassava help to better cassava varieties in ways that are important to our most important beneficiaries, the women farmers who hold the keys to food-secure homes? The other imperative that I want to talk about is leadership. It's not enough to train scientists. We need to train leaders in science. There's an incredible need for and demand by our project partners in developing countries to develop the important leadership skills that will help the next generation of trained scientists be effective champions of change. And this need goes beyond our project partners in Ethiopia or India. Our own students are often missing from their Cornell experience specific training in leadership. These are not soft skills. These are the most essential tools that will help all of our students go on to succeed when they leave our halls and make incredible discoveries and improve lives around the world. Because we recognize the lack of leadership skills as a bottleneck to success, we now write opportunities to address the acquisition of leadership skills into all of our grants, and we are seeing success. For example, an alumna of our Durable Rust Resistance and Wheat Leadership Program, the Women in Triticum Award, Holly Tufan, a trained molecular biologist with a sincere commitment to agricultural development, recently joined our IP-CALS office to manage the Next Gen Cassava Grant, a position through which she will have great impact helping other young men and women scientists in Africa and at Cornell meet their own leadership potential. Just last week, she was in Nairobi discussing ways to connect our programs here with the award program for African women in agricultural research. Already we are experiencing a ripple effect. And I find this extraordinarily exciting, and I'm determined to bring more resources through external grants to leadership development in the future. Without leadership, there is very little impact. We need more leaders, we need more champions. And may I combine these two imperatives in the presence of Dean Bohr, a real role model, and say that we need to ensure that we are training more female leaders. And I am confident that when IPCAL celebrates its next 50 years, we will see a more diverse set of leaders being celebrated. As we look ahead to the future, we need to recognize the complexity of global challenges related to international agriculture and take systems approaches in addressing them. We need to build interdisciplinary programs through which social scientists interact with engineers, who interact with agricultural scientists, who interact with economists. We need to be innovative in applying digital solutions to addressing persistent problems. Business as usual will not solve the unprecedented challenges we face today in agriculture and development. We need to continue to fertilize the intellectual breeding ground for future generations of creative, interdisciplinary scientists who will innovate and partner to implement solutions that have unprecedented and welcome impact. We cannot rest on the laurels of our first 50 years or rely on the Cornell brand to champion our cause. For IPCALS to continue to be as relevant in the next 50 years as we have been in the past 50 years, we need to leverage the best of who we are and where we've been, reflect on our weaknesses and our strengths, and strategically grow resources with new funding partners so that we can continue to be the leading solutions-oriented, internationally focused College of Agriculture and Life Sciences on the planet. Today's greatest living resources are cut from the same cloth that allowed the magic of IPCALS to happen 50 years ago: individual champion leaders. And whether we are students, faculty, alumni, or staff, our greatest strength is our collective drive to do good and our commitment to improving people's lives where resources are scarce and sustainability imperative. At the core of IPCALS is a well of knowledge destined for public purpose, knowledge for impact. In our midst are innovators of solutions for sustainability and compassionate champions of change. In the coming year, we have the opportunity to learn from each other, forge new partnerships, and formulate new directions for IPCAL's roadmap ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Great job. Before I introduce the dean, it might be worth mentioning that there was a woman involved. You know, John Lossing Buck was married to Pearl Buck, who wrote The Good Earth while the husband was doing whatever, I don't know. Pearl Buck has a master's degree from Cornell, and the Bucks used to live in the parsonage of the Forest Home Chapel. It was missionary money that provided the financial support for Dr. Love and everybody to go abroad. So thank you, Sarah. For now, it gives me a great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Dean Catherine Bohr, the Ronald P. Lynch Dean of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. You all know a lot about Dean Bohr, but you might not know that she had an early international experience. Conducting research for 2 years in Kenya, East Africa, she was a member of a multidisciplinary team working with small-scale farmers to enhance sustainable and safe goat milk production and preservation systems before earning her PhD in microbiology in 1994 at UC Davis. Most recently, her most recent international experience I happen to know was in the Philippines, where we were there to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Cornell Club of the Philippines. Please welcome Dean Bohr.
Well, thank you very much, Ronnie, and I'm here to assure all of you, and particularly Larry, that CALS deans still dream. And they dream big, and I don't think I could have expressed that dream better than you just did, Sarah. which is about that role for international programming in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences here at Cornell University. So thank you for such a lovely job tonight. I'm really delighted to be here tonight to help launch this celebration. And I'm going to talk to you about my vision for the future of international engagement in CALS and at Cornell, and the central role that I see for CALS international programs that will play in fulfilling that vision. But first, I'd like to take a moment again to congratulate IP-CALS for all the accomplishments that we've heard about so far this evening. The program is remarkable, and it was pioneered and continues to be pioneered by remarkable people. It is CAL's flagship for food security and rural development initiatives around the globe, and its teaching, research, and extension programs certainly are world-renowned. For half a century, the program has successfully developed leaders in the fields of international agriculture and development while achieving global impact that has made a significant difference in the lives of untold numbers of people. Since the 1920s, when CAL's plant breeders successfully partnered with colleagues in China to increase yields of rice and wheat, Cornell's international reputation has been built upon a foundation laid by the hard work of our faculty, our staff, and our students. As a result, today, Cornell University is well known abroad for our work in fields that are directly related to our current 4 priority areas. Those are food and energy systems, the life sciences, the environmental sciences, and economic and community development. Furthermore, thanks in large measure to the work of CAL's international programs, the entire university is widely acknowledged by research, educational, governmental, and philanthropic institutions everywhere in the world. Cornell is recognized as a leading center of excellence in the fields of international agriculture and rural development. I'm proud of all that you've done and continue to do to extend Cornell's land-grant mission of delivering knowledge with a public purpose to the international community. Yet, as everyone who's here this evening understands all too well, there is still much to do to meet the needs of the world's poorest and most malnourished people. If we take a broad look at today's global food and agricultural landscape, we must first acknowledge the remarkable progress that has been made in the last 50 years, in part because of programs like IP-CALS. For example, nearly 6 billion people have adequate calories today, and that is up from 2 billion people who had adequate calories 50 years ago. From the 1940s through the 1970s, public and private sector investments in agricultural research in North America and Western Europe increased productivity faster than the growth for demand for food, resulting in overall reductions in food prices in many parts of the world. In other parts, such as South Asia and Latin America, the Green Revolution led to similarly significant increases in food production that largely kept pace with rapidly expanding populations, contributing significantly to food security in these regions, and in many cases, helping to prevent widespread starvation. And as a result of these investments and innovations, farmers around the world multiplied their resource efficiency during this period, very fundamentally empowering the growth and the development of our modern society in many places around the world. And yet, as a direct consequence of all of this success, the pressure to invest in agriculture and rural development has diminished over the years, as other seemingly more urgent environmental and health issues, such as HIV and AIDS, for example, have garnered greater global attention. So in many ways, we are the victim of our own successes. In addition, in many low-income countries, rural populations have historically lacked the political clout of their urban compatriots, often resulting in the unmet needs of the rural poor, who rely much more heavily upon agriculture to make a living. And Sarah, you really referred to that in a very powerful way as you were describing the movement of men in many cases out of the rural areas and the reliance on the women to grow the food. Moreover, while the agricultural advances of the last 50 years have contributed to the economic success in many countries, including China and Brazil, and have resulted in a breathtaking expansion of the global food supply, chronic malnutrition remains endemic in many of the poorest regions of the world. So to illustrate, in the period from 2010 to 2012, the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations reported that fully 870 million people were chronically undernourished, while approximately 2 billion suffer nutritional nutritional deficiencies that are significant enough to impact mental and physical development. And as we all know, such long-term malnutrition leads to decreases in adult productivity and earning potential and contributes significantly to susceptibility of populations to infectious disease. And finally, within the last 5 years, we've witnessed a marked increase in global food insecurity as instability in food prices due to the multitude of environmental and economic factors have rocked countries around the world, contributing to social unrest and poverty in many parts around the globe. So taken together, these factors, both positive and negative, have shaped our current global landscape in food security and rural development. And we face a multitude of emerging challenges, including a still growing global population in the context of finite land and water resources, unpredictable effects of climate change, all of which call into question our ability to provide current and future generations with safe and sustainable sources of energy, food, and water, while simultaneously protecting the environment and conserving natural resources. Overcoming these challenges will require leaders from government, from industry, from NGOs, and from academia to work more closely than ever before. We must reinvest in the public and private entities that are responsible for driving rural development and agricultural innovation. We must work to encourage an objective examination of available data to bolster widespread acceptance and implementation of the spectrum of agricultural practices that are deemed most effective to ensure a sustainable food security and supply for the world. And we must strive to better communicate to the people of the world about the interconnectedness of our food and agricultural systems to help people to better understand the vulnerabilities that are created by these interconnectedness so that they understand that a decision that's made in one part of the world can have unintended consequences elsewhere. In CALS and at Cornell, we have a critical role to play in shaping the conversation around all of these complex issues and in developing and in spearheading a wide array of measures to address them. For example, few other institutions in the world are better equipped to address many of the scientific and technical problems that imperil our long-range food security. With the support of public and private partners, we in CALS can help to devise new ways to enhance the quality of unusable soils, to augment the genetic potential of farming systems, to increase the availability of safe water for drinking and irrigation, and to reduce crop losses due to insects, disease, and competition from weeds and predators, among many other issues. At the level of social change, CALS is also uniquely equipped to work with our partners to forge solutions that spur the development and implementation of productivity-increasing and risk-reducing research and technology, to encourage behavioral changes that contribute to healthier lives and greater environmental stewardship, and inspire investment in the physical, social, and economic infrastructure needed to support the growth of a vibrant, agricultural-based economy in the world's poorest rural regions. I'm proud to say that the people of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences International programs are already busy doing the type of work that I've just described in numerous locations around the world, leading the way to improved access among this planet's poorest communities to economic opportunity and the development of a safe, sustainable food and water supply. Yet here on campus, we also have important work to do to continue to shape the next generation of thinkers and those leaders who will be responsible for developing new solutions to these ongoing concerns. In his recent white paper entitled Bringing Cornell to the World and the World to Cornell, President Skorton outlined a bold vision for the role of students in the university's international engagement strategy, and it's a vision that I share. To continue to lead the kind of transformational change that we've been discussing this evening, Cornell must better prepare its students to compete and to lead effectively in the global economy of tomorrow. We must work to broaden our curricula and to expand our programs that enable students to undertake international field research and experiential learning opportunities. And as Ronnie suggested, as broadband access improves in developing countries, we must explore new avenues of collaborative learning across institutions and across political boundaries. and we must strive to expand leadership and professional skills training within our own curricula so that students develop the necessary tools with which to lead, to collaborate, and to communicate effectively with others from diverse cultures and diverse backgrounds. Our college is fully committed to supporting our faculty and our students as they pursue a shared goal of providing knowledge with a public purpose to the world at large. And as I hope my remarks and those of the other speakers here this evening have illustrated, CALS International Programs is absolutely integral to that vision. For 50 years, this program has played a central role in shaping the direction and the impact of both CALS and Cornell's global outreach efforts. And as we look to a future in which food security and development-related issues reemerge at the forefront of the global agenda, and that is exactly where we are headed, I believe that our role will only continue to grow in a more prominent way. Thank you all for your kind attention, and congratulations once more to CALS International Programs for 50 remarkable path-breaking years.
Thank you, Catherine. It's a really nice presentation. As you've all heard from these speakers, international programs in sustainable development and food security are more relevant now than they've ever been before. And I want to show you what we're up against just before we close. At just 2 slides, don't worry. And where is it? Here we go. So here's what's happened in 50 years. This is a recent graph from the Economist that it was actually published last May. Each of those bars represents 5 years, and there's exactly 50 years there. So you see what's happened. Really, there are 3 continents over there that are exporting, and essentially everybody else is importing. And look how it's grown in the last 5 years. Look what's happened to the Middle East and Africa and Asia. I think it's just quite extraordinary, the issues. And you know, people are seeing this. A lot of people with a lot of money, investment bankers and others, are looking at this and thinking about what's going to happen. By 2050, there will be 9 billion people on the planet. The rising middle class in the developing world already wants more food, more meat, more dairy, more poultry, more fuel. We need to meet this demand and curb the effects of the production required to feed that demand. Food distribution networks have to be strengthened. Food waste has to be curtailed. Infrastructure from roads and bridges to refrigeration and food processing centers have to be improved. We can expect to see initiatives that probably we never imagined. I want to show you another slide here. Sometimes we don't quite realize where the action is. We only have about 12% of the population on our side of the earth, and everybody else is on the other side. And the hub of it all is the Persian Gulf. And where these lines came from are the 4 airlines that fly out of the Persian Gulf. One of our Callie Arthur captured that. So, and those folks are really worried about food security because they really have no means to produce. So they're setting up processing facilities, and they're acquiring land and resources and contracts, and they're going to bring food in from that whole vast area, process it in the Gulf. I don't quite know how it's going to evolve. The Chinese, the Koreans, and others who have a lot of money and are very insecure about their food supply are going to make some serious investments. You can bank on that. So I hope that IP-CALS will continue to develop future generations of leaders by helping internationalize the Cornell experience for faculty and students. I hope that IP-CALS will help in generating and disseminating the new knowledge and technologies to meet the challenges of development and food security. The work of the faculty, the staff, the students in this room is more relevant than it ever was. Thank you very much for your time and attention. and I hope you'll stay and enjoy each other's company, and I hope there's still some food and drink in the back. Thank you very much for coming.